The traitorous government of Canada just admitted that they have allowed in at least 17,600 convicted criminals into the country since 2015. Not immigrants. That number is more like 8 million. At least 17,600 people who they knew were convicted criminals. But the traitorous Liberal Party of Canada continued to allow them into country. Yesterday, look at the Minister of External Affairs for India. Look at what he had to say about our insane immigration policy that welcomes known criminals into Canada. Crime rates in this country have absolutely skyrocketed in perfect coordination with Justin Trudeau's election as Prime Minister of Canada in 2015. Look at the charts. It's perfect. It starts moving in the exact opposite direction. Harper had continually been getting crime rates lower and lower and lower during his time as Prime Minister. Trudeau gets elected. Immediately, as soon as Trudeau opens the floodgates for immigration, introduces bills like Bill C-75, which force law enforcement to allow criminals out on bail as soon as possible. Insane policies, communist policies. We have a communist government. The crime rates in Canada start going in the exact opposite direction. Don't let our politicians lie to you and say it's due to guns. They now are introducing this gun buyback program where they want legally owned guns to be turned in. 90% of crimes, over 90% of crimes in Canada are committed by people with illegal guns, not legal guns. But the crime rates in Canada start going upwards in perfect coordination with Justin Trudeau being elected as our Prime Minister. If you look at it since 2015, violent crime rates in this country are up 80% in under a decade. Up 80%. Crimes against women up 100%. Petty crimes up 200%. And I don't have to just cite these numbers to everyday Canadians. If you live in a major city in this country, heck, you don't even have to live in a major city. But if you live in Ottawa, you live in Toronto, you live in Montreal, you know how much more dangerous our cities have got. The open crack smoking all over the place due to these insane so-called safe supply laws. The criminals who get let out again and again and again. In the year 2024, 50 criminals in BC committed 6,000 crimes. That's each of them getting arrested an average of 150 times a year due to these ridiculous catch and release laws where criminals commit crime after crime after crime in Canada and they are released due to these insane woke policies like Bill C-75, which says the criminals must be allowed out on the streets as soon as possible. So how do you explain, how do you define a government as anything other than treasonous when they allow tens of thousands of not immigrants, convicted criminals into the country at the same time as they pass so-called criminal justice reforms that make it easier than ever for criminals to get back onto the street? It's a joke. If you speak to criminals in Canada, they know one of the only deterrents for criminal-minded people is knowing that there are harsh punishments. Talk to a psychologist. Everybody knows that you need to know there's a strong deterrent for criminals. Otherwise, they're going to commit crime time after time after time. We in Canada have some of the most lax bail policies in the Western world. It is incredibly easy to get out after committing crimes. So you import tens of thousands of criminals and you pass lax bail policies. It's literally a guarantee that you are making your streets more dangerous. This is traitorous behavior. Wake up, Canada. The Liberal Party of Canada is intentionally, the Communist Marxist Party of Canada is intentionally destroying this country. There's no other way to explain what's going on. You look at the Minister of External Affairs in India, he has no benefit to saying this. He's in shock at what the Canadian government is doing, welcoming known criminals in. Are you kidding me? The story of Daniel Senecal, a man who SA'd a 12-year-old child. It took him 2 years to get sentenced. Then he got released in 12 months and went out and ruined a 3-year-old's life. Disgusting. And you don't see any reporting about it on the CBC, on CTV. These disgusting state news propagandists who Mao's China, Stalin's USSR had absolutely nothing on. You see the spat of break and enters in Ontario. You used to never, I grew up in Canada, you never, incredibly rarely would you would you hear about a break and enter. Now it's a nightly occurrence. We just had a 46-year-old man shot and killed in front of his children. And what was the Liberals' response? The Liberals' response to this spat of break and enters, including where a man was killed, was to charge one of the men whose house was broken into, and he defended himself with a knife. That was their response. Not to attempt to reinstitute castle laws, which would make it legal to defend your goddamn property and your children. You don't want to get assaulted with a knife? How about you don't break into somebody's house? The Liberals side with criminals time and time again. Every great writer from Russia, Solzhenitsyn, Dostoevsky, they always wrote about how you knew a commie by the criminal would be allowed to roam free, while the ideological opposition would be prosecuted to the nth degree of the law. It's exactly what we're seeing in Canada. Bills like Bill C8, Bill C9 are being introduced. The most blatant attacks on free speech that the Western world has ever seen. They are going after their political opponents, and they're going after their political opponents hard. You want to be a criminal in Canada? You want to break and enter into people's homes? You want to make life a living hell for normal everyday citizens? Go ahead. You'll be bailed out in 2 seconds. But you want to criticize immigration policies online? You want to point out the rapid appreciation of house prices since the Liberals were elected in 2015? You want to point out that 70,000 excess Canadians are dying a year due to an overrun healthcare system that is largely due to the insane immigration policies that have seen 8 million people come into the country in a decade? The rapid changes to our culture. Then they'll call you a racist, a xenophobe, every name in the book, and they want to throw it at you. They want to make it so that you can get up to life in prison for so-called hate speech, which they define as fomenting detestation or vilification emotions. And we know exactly who they're going to be going after. You want to see hate speech on Canadian streets? Look at the rallies that have been getting police escorts over the past 2.5 years. That's where the hate speech is coming from. It's only patriotic Canadians who want to defend their country and want to have a safe society for their children to live in that are now deemed haters. Normal people, the Liberal government is going after because they want a safe society for their kids. It's sick. We are being governed by a bunch of commie Marxists, and it needs to end. It needs to end now. I'm going to be organizing. If you click on any of the on one of the 4 clothes items, if you grab something, I'd really appreciate it. Help support the cause. Thank you very much. It's cool stuff. Fight for Canada. Get the word out. Also, there's a newsletter to register for. If you scroll down on the website, I want to start organizing. Canadians need to start organizing, working together, because we cannot survive another couple of years of this crap, or this country is going to be done for. I'm also going to be setting up a Discord server, so stay tuned for that. Setting up a Discord server very soon. Please like, share, subscribe, join, become a member if you'd like to support. Make sure you're following on YouTube, youtube.com/@FightForCanada2025. If you're following on TikTok, I'm over 20K on TikTok. And the Canadian government is not a big fan of dissidents. Wake up, Canada. We have a bunch of crooks and criminals that are intentionally making this country more dangerous.